I didn't realize I didn't ask the peanut gallery.
This is the Power Hour podcast. We are not currently sponsored, but we are accepting applications. So, Andrew, how is that going, by the way?
Oh man, my email box is empty right now. So you guys want to sponsor us? I'm just kidding.
All right.
Welcome to Power Hour, guys. This is what are we? September 30th. We're here at Power Hour, another successful Power Hour day. Jeff, how was your week this week?
Dude, the week was really busy. I was doing a lot of different types of stuff with TC work and Dispo. And actually, one thing I was really interested in our topic today, I had to convert a cash contract that we had from a cash deal to a novation deal because of some things that were happening with that seller and kind of their financial situation. And then there's another one where we had it under contract for cash again, and then found out there's $30,000 of additional liens on it, so I had to switch that to a sub 2 deal. So I kind of wanted to talk about those that were pretty interesting.
I think it'd be awesome. You should talk about those.
But kind of the overarching theme of that, I really thought at the end of the day was with all of these sellers that I'm working with is like the importance of just having clear communication with everybody and keeping them up to date and not being fearful of some of these difficult talks.
So before we get into other things and bring up some guests, how did that call kind of break down the seller to the cash offer to Novation? How did that call kind of break down?
Yeah, so the way this happened, this was the Scenic Green house, and it always boils down to what is the problem that they're experiencing. And so the issue they were having was this guy's inherited the house, but he doesn't have money to keep the mortgage payments going, and the probate process hasn't started yet. So every month that goes by, he's running the risk of getting hit with foreclosure because these guys are going to jump on him pretty fast, not like other banks that might wait 8 months or so. And so we initiated a legal process, which is called getting a monument of title, so that he can get it sold, right? Monument of title. So we use Scott Horn's office to get that going. But even that's going to take a couple of months. So now what do you do? What are we going to do? Are we going to keep floating money to him every month to pay the mortgage? Because we're not going to just eat that cost. We're going to say, listen, that's $1,500 out of your proceeds at the end. So that doesn't seem like a viable solution. And the longer this goes on is longer that our contractors can't get to work. So when you kind of put the whole picture together, then when I have this call and say, look, Robert, I can keep floating you $1,500 and it's going to keep burning, it's just your money lighting on fire. Or we can do this that lets me get started and I will make the payments on the mortgage and now it's not affecting you. And he's like, where do I sign?
So yeah, a little bit of context on that specific property. We got the deal. It came into our pipeline, I think on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and Jeff and I went to go walk the property right then and there. And these sellers, I can't remember, they had 2 or 3 wholesalers that wanted to put an offer on the property as well too. But these wholesalers didn't want to come till the following Monday. So Jeff and I were there 3 days before anyone else was there.
We walked it on a Friday, I think.
Yeah, I think we walked on a Wednesday or something, Wednesday or Thursday. And the wholesalers didn't want to come out till the Monday. And so we built so much good rapport with them. We told them, hey, look out for this, look out for this. And Sunday came along and they're just like, hey, I can't remember the conversation that you had with them, but they said something along the lines of, hey, we want to go with what your offer is. And we gave them the offer, and Jeff did a really good job of delivering that offer. And we built such good rapport with them. Jeff's been following up with them every single month. We thought we would be able to close cash without having to go through the probate process. That didn't turn out to be the case. But now we're in this deal for several months now, and we're just like, hey, we either got to continue to do what we're doing, or we can turn to creative financing, which is so awesome that we can then pivot. And now Jeff gave me the green light to say, hey, we got this under contract. It's a novation now. Let's get the crew out there. And I was like, okay, my crew is going to be out there in 24 hours. So my crew is out there right now.
I should have, I didn't quite realize how fast Andrew's going to, he's been chomping at the bit for our first rehab for the past 2 months. I probably should have seen that one coming.
Yeah. So my contractor's out there. He doesn't get there till 4. Is going to clean it out, going to go. But that's like that. I think it's really important to understand too. Like there's cash, there's creative, and sometimes you may start the process going cash, but then you have to pivot to creative depending on the problem. Like at the end of the day, we solve problems, and it's the same thing in a business as well too. You have an acquisition side, you have a disposition side. Sometimes one side is eager and ready to go, but the other side can't do it. So it's like that constant communication with each other is so critical, so key that you really have to like communicate with each other. So that was a really good deal. So you had that one, and then you also had the other deal that we're gonna take it cash. There was multiple liens that came up, and then we're like, you know what, we have to take this over sub two. And so that's a difficult conversation to have because this lady was thinking, oh man, I'm gonna get a windfall of like $10,000 or $15,000, and now we're only going to give her a couple $1,000 because there's no room on the table.
That was a very difficult conversation, like bringing her into reality. And it wasn't even because she had been malevolent or had done something fundamentally. She made some assumptions about how she thought these liens worked. So what happened was she had gotten multiple loan modifications and had down payment assistance. So in her mind, she was just thinking, okay, well, if these are all associated with the mortgage, certainly they're all baked into my mortgage statement. And my mortgage statement shows X number of dollars. She just didn't realize that these liens were not like captured in the balance. So she runs all this, and she perfectly admits, she's like, yeah, all these things exist. I just assumed they were all here. And now I'm having to explain to her that money you thought you were about to get is gone. But if we don't do something different right now, instead of me writing you any kind of check, you're gonna have to write me a check for $2,000.
So there was a little bit of education, right? A little bit of educating her, right? Kind of walking her through the process, holding her hand on that, explaining the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, she it's funny. She actually drives over to the title company pretty regularly. Like now they know her. They probably bring her coffee when she shows up. It's kind of funny. But it was a little bit about educating her on it, but she's a smart lady. So when this came up, it's not like she was screaming at me, I got to get this third. Like she just accepted this is the reality, and it sucks. But again, it's about focusing her on what the problem was. I said, listen, at our current pace, you're gonna have to write me a check for $2,000. She's like, I can't do that. I said, no. If I could show you a way that you could still get $5,000 out of this thing, and I can make this stop, are you open to something different? And kind of same thing. She's like, where do I sign? So when you've really cataloged and understood the problem and you present a solution, that's where you find the number of objections that you have just are almost gone. Like then they're just clarifying, what are you going to do exactly? Well, we're going to make payments on your mortgage. That's the only way I can do this. She said, okay, cool. I don't care. I just want to move. Just take it over. I'm going into an apartment. It doesn't matter to me. And she's in. Yeah. So we did that this week, and yeah, that'll be hopefully a nice little project too.
Closed on a couple of really big deals last week. We close on 2 next week, right? I think 2.
I mean, that's the other funny part. So the other thing that I wanted to go into, like with the communication, is that one of them that we're closing next week, we're assigning that one. They're anticipating we're going to close on Tuesday, and the buyer's gotten a little iffy on if they can go that fast, even though I've been reinforcing this is what we need to do. So, what I kind of want to remind everybody, people get upset not because that there are problems and things that are happening along the way. They get upset because you don't tell them that these things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I knew, like, man, I'm going to have to give these people some bad news, I am not avoiding this conversation. And that's why, like, they responded and they said, okay, like, we really want this to be done Tuesday. That'll be a little disappointing, Jeff, if you can't do it, but thanks for keeping us up to date. People hate being blindsided by
surprising,
problems.
yeah.
That's what they hate. So don't avoid the difficult conversations.
And most new investors, they get scared because they think, oh man, I don't want to have this problem because it's going to blow up in my face. But what you're saying is basically like, hey, it may be an uncomfortable conversation, but people would appreciate the fact that you just keep them in the loop. And sometimes when we get a deal on a contract and we just assign it to the end buyer, us as wholesalers, we think, okay, I'm done. My TC's dealing it, title's dealing with it. No, you still have to get that person to the closing table. You still have to build a relationship with them. And then you still have to then sit there and say, okay, this is gonna be the plan, but we're gonna move it to here. That's how some people, and you've dealt with a lot of them, they sell a property to somebody and this seller makes $100,000. And now that seller becomes their private money lender. Like you hear that a lot in sub two, but it's because you are so responsive and you are so, hey, this is what's happening and I'm being honest and transparent with you. It's not what I expected, but I'm going to let you know what's going on. And people appreciate that. And then when you're at the closing table, it's like, oh, you made $100,000. Oh, great. What are you going to do with that money? Well, I don't know. Put it in the bank. Okay. Why don't you leverage it against real estate? But that's really what it boils down to. Just communicating, solving problems, and just being like a good person, like helping out.
Yeah, I think it's also with like setting expectations. One of the things I coach a lot is this whole idea of post sale. You set here's the people you're going to get phone calls from. Here's what's about to happen. Title company, who we're going to have a guest come up in a minute and talk about. But even one of those things in setting expectations is, look, there are going to be some kind of hiccups along the way. I'm batting 1,000 right now on issues that happen. They always do. The only promise I can make to you is that I'm going to work through them with you, and I'm going to keep you in the loop. Nothing's ever perfect. And kind of when you have that attitude with them, when those things occur, you've already mentally rehearsed it with them. Oh yeah, Jeff did say some issue is going to pop up. He didn't know. Okay, I guess, like Apollo 13 is like, okay, I guess this is our glitch for this mission. Like they already knew it. Not the later on with the explosion, but in the launch, there's this scene where that's what Tom Hanks' character says.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we're at Power Hour. There's people making some calls in each of the rooms. We got people looking around. Do you guys want to bring up our first guest?
Yeah, I do.
Who's our first guest? Let's do
a first time Power Hour. Karen, right?
You miss Karen. Come on down. Everyone give her a clap.
Yay.
An applause. Yeah, I miss Karen. Okay, so those of you guys that don't know, we like to bring up somebody that's at a Power Hour for the first time. We'd like to ask them like what their thoughts were, how they heard about us, and then also what is their plan kind of moving forward. So tell us your name, tell us how you heard about us, and then tell us what your thoughts were about Power Hour so far.
My name is Karen, and I was asked to be in a small group with some ladies, and one of them brought up the Power Hour, and then I looked it up, and I joined your group on Facebook.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I'm not always available for Saturday, so today I was, and so I came in, and I did make one call.
Okay.
But they didn't answer.
They didn't answer.
Have you made calls before? Tell us your background a little bit, like in real estate in general.
I'm new. I've done a lot of reading and research, but make no moves.
So tell us a little bit about your first experience making that first call
today.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff did a lot of good intro and making me feel comfortable to do it.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that.
Yeah, I mean it's just you just don't know what to say, and he gave me some good advice.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of our mantras here is like, less YouTube consumption, less studyings, like more action.
Yes.
And, so even in that first dial, just going through the motions of hitting the buttons, even if nobody answers it, it's just, you got to take that first step.
Yeah, there's a lot of information online, and it's confusing because you don't know what to think first and how to handle it. And then if you did connect with a seller, what would you do, or what would you do first? You don't really have the team or people, you don't know who to, like the lender and things like that. So
yeah,
so I'm here to learn.
So when you were sitting in the conference room, were you hearing some other people having conversations, and if so, what were you picking up?
Oh yes, I
Full of
did.
big questions, aren't I?
Yes, a few people were deconnect and they discussed the call with the other one, some of us sitting there, and it was just good to be part of that.
Yeah. So you're new. You want to get into real estate investing, right? Do you want to buy houses? Do you want to be a wholesaler? What do you want to do in real estate? Like what?
I'm kind of open.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. I would like to have some long-term rentals, or even some STRs.
I love it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because in this group in general, and it's your first time here, but you'll see like the more you come back, you'll see the same faces. A lot of us
Mhm.
we're not. We all met because of Power Hour. Some of us are in sub two. We met prior, but some of the people that are not in sub two, they come to Power Hour consistently. They've built such a good relationship with us to
Mhm.
where even not only on Saturdays, but even during the week, they're calling us and be like, "Hey, what do I do here?" So
Great.
I think the culture that we have here is great because we're giving new people like you more opportunities, right? Versus you have to pay for a mentorship, you have to go do this, you have to go do that, and the reality is it's more information to you to get
Yes.
confused on again. But the reality is you don't learn enough until you start taking action,
Right.
right? And I think that's why Jeff is so good at what he does as far as sales goes. It's because, like you just said, he simplified it.
Yes.
He made it so easy to where it's like, oh yeah,
And
that's
I
all I
learn
have to
best
do.
by doing. That's just my style.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can read all day and it doesn't sink in compared to doing it. So it's
Yeah.
been good.
It's funny. I feel like, all three of us, like we are in sub two, but we really came together because of Power. Like that truly is how we met. So anyway, hey,
Okay.
Karen, thank you for
Oh,
being
sure.
here on your first
Thank
day.
y'all.
Power Hour.
Thanks
Congratulations.
for having
Awesome.
us. All right, you want to bring up Oscar? Let's bring up Oscar
Yeah, I
next.
want Oscar to come up here.
Oscar.
Get up here. Dude, one of our regulars here.
I know Oscar's been coming back.
Oh.
Started door knocking. Oscar's in sub two. Oscar started door knocking. Oscar has consistently come to Power Hour. I would say, yeah, like 2 to 3 times a month he comes out here. So, Oscar, what has been your experience? Let us know who you are, what you do, what your avatar is, and yeah, favorite ice cream.
All right.
What favorite ice cream?
Yeah, favorite ice cream too.
Favorite ice cream? Okay.
Cookies and cream.
Thank you guys for hosting the Power Hour continuously since the beginning of the year. That provides a lot of value, provides a safe space for all newcomers. And my name's Oscar. What Power Hour has done to me is it helped me network and build a foundation of what I could do and tap into my potential as a caller or as a problem solver. And my avatar, the main one, is problem solver. I do direct to seller, direct to agent, visionary, a little bit of an integrator. However, I like to focus more on problem solving because our mentor, Pace Morby, just says if you problem solve for anyone and you deliver value with it, you're going to be rewarded for that. And that's what I choose to do. And with Power Hour, if you've never been and you live in Houston, I highly recommend for you to come in and give it 3 times, 3 chances to come continuously, not just once, but do it 3 times so you can build that persistency. And you'll be able to network with Andrew, Jeff, Jeremy, and other great individuals here who are go givers. And if you have questions, this is the best place to ask them. And what I'm focusing on right now is wholesaling, but at the same time, we do sub twos. And we have a team called Dowie Investments, and that's what we're focusing on single family with DTA and DTS because we just want to focus on problem solving and be an extra tool belt for the agents or have a solution for the sellers as well. And that's what we're focusing on right now.
So go back to when you first came to Power Hour, Oscar. Like what would you say, like, because you've changed so much since when you came to Power Hour to now.
Mhm.
What would you say, like, what advice would you give to people? You mentioned come consistently, but what other advice would you give to people that are starting out? Like, this is their first day, like Karen that was just here. Dennis is here, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times in a row now. Like, what advice would you give to people like that are just getting started out?
If you're just getting started out, my advice is first things first, self awareness. Be self aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. You want to know what things you could work on and what things you could already do. And just be aware of what you're capable of, right? The second thing is your mindset, besides, well, it's similar to self awareness because if you're going to do this for long terms, you need to be persistent, have that emotional discipline because many people start real estate because they get that emotional high. They release those endorphins like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. Or others people's energy is so contagious that you feel their energy and you get excited too. Then people just do spontaneous decisions and then that decision is no longer there after a month or 2 months. So just be very emotionally disciplined with that and just be consistent. You could be consistent slowly, start off slow. Like when I first started, you said I was door knocking. I was door knocking every weekend, and I did door knocking because I have a background of door knocking from last year. I knocked over like 1,000 doors, so like that's why I started with door knocking. But then I realized it could be different, a different approach just by calling, right? And now I'm doing more calling than door knocking, but I love door knocking either way. So if I have the chance to door knock, I'm a door knock. So to answer your question, first, self-awareness. Second is have the mindset where you're gonna keep going even if it gets hard.
I love it. Any other questions?
I do want to tell.
A little story about Oscar. I do remember the first time I met him. He actually jumped on the nightly dollar, right? Correct?
Yeah,
And you made your first call.
yeah,
Like first day, right?
yeah.
First or
First
second
day.
day of being a sub 2. He makes his first call. He gets connected with me,
Yeah,
and he calls me up the next day. It was like, "Hey, where's Power Hour at? I want to come out." Talk about jumping in, taking action like immediately. Like got into sub 2.
Was it Rudy's, right?
It was at Rudy's.
no, it was supposed to be at Rudy's, but then it got moved to Regina's apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I showed up at Rudy's, but it was changed like 15 minutes before it started.
But he called me up the next day instantly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you're
Yeah, we
starting,
were.
yeah. So if you're starting, just take massive action and just be consistent with it. Because when I first started, I had 2 W-2s, and I was doing this as my third job. Then I quit my second W-2 to do this more part time, and then I recently quit my first W-2, so now I'm doing this full time.
I love it. Other thing I will add on to it. So like, self-awareness is really key. Like knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, knowing what your avatar is really key, but also like putting yourself in the right position with leaders as well too. Like if you have a deal, you have a lead, you think you can get it to the finish line, great. But it's probably easier to call, a leader and say, "Hey, can you help me get this to the finish line?" Even though you don't make a lot of money, as far as an assignment fee goes, at least the experiences that you get, the lessons that you learn are going to be so much more powerful than doing it on your own. Because if you can do it on your own, you'll get 100% of all the profits. But the reality is you're going to make a lot of mistakes and it's not fun. I know my first deal that I did, I had so many people help me out. I was so blessed to be able to have people help me out. And I didn't care how much I made on the back end. Like I really didn't care. And that catapulted me to where now we've had a really good year. But because I was able to say, "Hey, you're a leader and sub to help me do this, do that. Like, what do I do here?" So I would add on to that and say, yes, keep coming consistently, give Power Hour multiple times, build multiple relationships with people, but also go with the leaders that are closing deals, that are locking up deals to help you get them to the finish line. Because we all know we've had deals that we've got under contract and they don't get to the finish line. It's so sad. It's so depressing. It's like, dude, you think, "Oh man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this." And you lock it in. And then all of a sudden you go through title and it's like, crap, there's so many issues.
Yeah.
So having that. So, all right, Oscar,
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Of course.
Thanks for coming on to the
Thank
Power
you.
Hour. Keep
Appreciate.
doing
Oh,
what
my
you're doing.
favorite ice cream is straight vegan vanilla ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Or banana ice cream.
Well, before you go, Oscar,
Yeah.
how can people reach you?
Oh, people could reach me on my Instagram, Oscar.Dowie Investments, or you could just, through there, DM me.
Just
Thank
find
you.
him at Power Hour. He
Yeah,
should be
Power
here
Hour.
on Saturday talking.
Yeah,
with us.
of course. Yeah,
All right.
come. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Of course.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. I think we have our last special guest. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Tanya.
introduce her? She probably ran away.
Not. Oh no. Okay. So one of the reasons we've been really blessed to use Fidelity is just really has saved the day for me on a few occasions. Some of my bigger deals have been because Fidelity has come out and cleared up some nasty title issues that other title companies were screwing up, and I wouldn't have made the kind of money. So Tanya has been the escrow officer that's been handling the majority of my files, and thank you so much for coming out
Yeah,
today.
thank you
hanging out
guys. I'm
with us.
excited.
So we were talking about earlier, like you're actively reaching out to agents now, trying to get them to understand, like, every agent, every transaction goes through title, and you either have a good experience, you have a hellacious experience, or you have the normal one, which is, hey, we got issues and stuff to work through, and you just got to play around with it. Right. So we were just talking about like the importance of communication.
Right.
You were talking about those things. So, when when anyone brings a file, they get a contract and they got to bring it to title. What are the important things that they should be asking that title company to make sure they're going to get good service?
Um, what I always do is ask my first question when I first have a new client, just when you and I start working together, is how do you want me to communicate with you? Do you prefer text messages? Are you, I mean, I know investors, real estate agents, y'all are always on the go. You're not in front of your computer. Email is most likely not the best form of communication. Like you said, communication is the most important thing. So I always like to find out, what way do you want me to communicate with you? Are you okay with me texting you? Do you not want me to have your cell phone number? I give my cell phone number to everybody. It's the quickest, easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm in the closing room a lot. I'm away from my email. If you text me, I'm going to get on my watch and I'll know to call you back. So I think the first thing in a new relationship is setting that tone of how are we going to communicate with each other, because that is the most important thing, especially when you have title issues. Communicating that, setting the expectation. We're not going to be able to close in a week. It's going to take us a little bit longer. We've got dead people in title. You've got to give me a little bit more time here. So just communicating and setting that expectation.
Yeah. Jeremy, have you dealt with some wacky title issues in your deals? Not really. Okay. So one of the things I don't remember. I don't know if it was you who was working on this file, but one of the first ones where it was our first development deal, and there's like 18 errors in this thing.
Yeah.
And even
think
as
that
an
was me.
investor, like it was still hard for me to grasp what in the colossal hell is going on
Yeah.
here. So, like, what are some tips you can give to agents and anybody? Like, how do we present this package in a way that somebody can jump on and understand?
Yeah, I think that 18 errors one was me. I remember it. I remember when I had one 18 errors. Um, a lot of investors are buying from people who are in distress situations, right? So behind on their mortgage, facing foreclosure, tax sale. You guys are coming in and saving them, right? A lot of times there are dead people in title, and you guys are buying from their heirs. So in that situation, I always want to set the expectation and make sure everyone understands it's going to take us a little bit longer, right? We kind of have to act as private investigators. We do some digging on that 18 errors one. I don't know if this was the same one, but on one that I had, there were 4 children selling their parents' home. Their parents had died, and the father had 14 other children that they didn't know about. So it ended up being 18 heirs, and it was not pretty. The 4 children were not happy. They thought they were going to be splitting these proceeds between the 4 of them. And it took us months to track down all 14 of them, get everybody on the same page, because all 14 of them are sellers, right? They all have to be in agreement with how they're going to split this up. Um, so just setting the expectation with that, it's going to take a little bit longer. You started, which this past week, which is extremely helpful. You asked me for the seller info sheet, so you can start getting that for me when you do the contract. That is extremely helpful. That speeds up the process so much. So as soon as we get the contract, you can send us that seller info sheet, and we can right there know what we're dealing with from the beginning.
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know, most title companies, they all have kind of their own seller intake form. We got to gather up seller's name, phone number, email address, dog's middle name, all the things so they can start investigating. But this is like one of these, it's to everybody on the outside, it's like this mystery of what actually goes on in the title company office. Bomb. So when you get a file, what do you actually do to start doing this
Right.
private investigating? What is it?
Well, sometimes we don't know, right? Sometimes nobody is telling us anything. The first thing, if there's a dead person in title, right, and you're dealing with their son, their daughter, as acting as the seller, we would send them an affidavit of heirship, a packet to start filling out, right? That's if there's no will that hasn't been probated. The option the other way is to go the affidavit of heirship. So they start filling out this packet, and it lets us know if they were married, did they have a spouse when they died, if they had children with their spouse, if there was children outside the marriage. So they start filling this out. We have an attorney that we work with that would prepare this. We shoot it over to her. She starts doing her digging. She will Google the people. She'll pull the eulogy. She'll pull birth records, death records. I mean, she's really doing her digging. And sometimes she's the one that comes back to us and says, hey, by the way, we've found a marriage license. This person was married to somebody else at the time of the death. They had children with this person. And so then we have to go back and give that news. And it's not always easy to give, and it's difficult. And some of these people, I mean, kind of destroys their family sometimes. It's hard. But I mean, we have to follow the law. I don't make the law. We have to follow it. And all of these heirs are entitled to this property. I don't, unfortunately, I don't. I wish I did. It'd be a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier. So yeah, it gets a little messy sometimes for sure.
So you were mentioning earlier, and I really want to. I think a lot of what we try to give here is like educating people that have either never done a deal or done a few deals. I guess the question that I'll ask you is, like, how many files do you work at a time? Are you just working the file that I send you? Is that it, Tanya?
Wouldn't that be nice? I give you all of my time and attention. Oh God.
So let's
God.
educate people. You have a lot of files you do at one time, right? You're juggling multiple files with multiple problems.
We have 4 escrow officers here in my office. Each escrow officer opens anywhere from 30 to 120 orders a month, right? In a perfect world, all of those close within 30 days. So all of those would close the next month. We all know that's not how it works. Some of them stretch out further. So in our pipeline, we could have, I think in my pipeline right now, I probably have 80 open orders, right?
80
open orders that I'm working at one time.
Yes.
And they're just continuing to come in. Every day I'm opening new orders.
Files.
So it's just going. One of our escrow officers, she probably has like 200 open orders right now. So no, unfortunately your file's not the only one I'm working. I wish it was. It'd be a lot easier.
But
right?
people, when they join or they start, they think, oh, I'm going to give you this file. This is the only one you're working on.
Yeah.
You got to get me to the closing table. And they
Right.
think, oh, you're only doing this.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's my other question too. Is we were talking earlier, is like, what time of the month is busier? Because you deal with a lot of foreclosures. People want to close before the end of the month. So around what time is like, the busy time for you guys and the month's perspective goes?
Right. So end of month is always the craziest time. So be patient with us. That last week of the month, we're all drowning. We're all trying to stay above water here. People are, foreclosure, those are the first Tuesday of every month. So everyone, for some reason, it's always the Thursday before the tax sale and the foreclosure. These sellers will come to us asking us to pull some miracles off and get them closed before that Tuesday. And we always try, we do what we can, but you gotta give us some time here, right?
Yeah. But I think us as investors, we need to relay that message and that education to the sellers and set the expectation, right? Build that expectation and say, hey, if we want to close your property and you're getting foreclosed on in 2 weeks, we need to open title now. We need to get the process started now. We need to make sure the title's clear and there's no extra liens and all this other stuff.
100%.
And then we will agree upon that. So I think that's good that you have brought that attention to people, because again, when I get started, you hear people all the time, oh, this title company is doing bad. Okay, well, what's going on? Well, this, and this. You realize that's going to take time. Like we were talking earlier, like, hey, they have a file open in a different county.
Yeah.
Like people don't understand. Like that's just something. Our hands are tied. We can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. Do you guys have any other questions for Miss Tanya?
I do not. Do you? No. You do. How dare you?
I know you do. Andrew does.
Yeah. So Tanya, again, I just want to say, like, I've always had a great experience at this title. Thank you for running my files like you have. If people decide that they want to stop screwing around with these other title companies and use y'all, what is the best way they can get in touch with you?
The best way, I always say, is call my cell phone, text my cell phone. I give my cell phone number out to everybody. It's the best way to get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me on weekends if you have questions. You text with me all the time. My cell phone number is 713-894-8400.
Be sure you tell Tanya that Power Hour sent you.
100%.
Thank you for coming and hanging out with us today. Really appreciate you.
You weren't too bad. All right, you want to wrap the show, Jeffrey?
I still haven't come up with like our zinger line or standard ending intro. Like I'm just lazy. I'm not a producer, man.
That's okay. I think we're just I think the biggest thing right now is like we're providing a ton of value. I mean, having somebody like Tanya that's closed a ton of files that have helped us out a lot. I think
and she's worked through some crazy stuff too.
But also people that are new, it's like understanding, like, just because you get a deal under contract, like she said, they open 100 files a month, right? One escrow officer. How much percentage are going to close? 70%, 60%.
Yeah, I mean that's for your average wholesaler, and then of those 100 files, like yeah, how many of them are cookie cutter, and then how many of them are just batshit lunacy that she has to deal with, and
Yeah.
it's still one file.
But that's the other thing too. Like my point is that like if you bring an actual, property that you're working on, a lead that you're working on, bring it to a leader, we can sit there and say, we can pick it apart. And we can say, hey, this is not going to get to the closing table and it's not worth anyone's time. You got to go back and either renegotiate or set better expectations to the sellers. So to save everyone's time, to save everyone's headache, partner up with people that know what they're doing, that have closed files, that have relationships like Tanya, like Fidelity, like other title companies that we work with. I think that's really key for new people to really understand. And I think that's critical. That's
Yeah.
really, really critical.
So guys, last note, just to give this with you and we'll sign off here. Communicate with your sellers what is about to happen with title, how you're going to stay in communication with them. If you have a dispo partner, if you have inspectors, start explaining to them, give them the expectations of what's about to happen before closing, and give them the expectation, we're going to run into some hiccup along the way and we're going to work through it together. When you do that and when you stay in communication along the way, that's when you find a lot of these problems can get resolved. You don't set expectations, you don't give communication. That's when people start really, really getting angry. This is the Power Hour podcast. Thanks
Go
for
take
hanging out.
action.
Go take action.